Next keynote is about how to keep your users. Being a gamers, I think I want to ask a question. Well, since our major audience are Chinese, I'm going to ask in Chinese. 大家有没有这种就是作为玩家来说有这么一个经历？我下载了一个游戏，突然发现好像很不好玩，我第二天就给卸载了，又占内存又不好玩。那么下面一个演讲呢，就是从游戏设计的角度来讲，如何在第1分钟留住你的用户。Let's welcome the next keynote from Game Design Studio CEO Pascal Luban, and his topic would be how to keep your players after the first minute of gameplay. Welcome, Pascal. Sorry, Pascal.
Thank you, Jesse. All right. Well, good afternoon and welcome to my talk on players' retention. So we all know the hard fact. When someone is going to play a game, a freemium game, most of the players will just leave the game right after the first session. And for most games, this day one retention is about just between 20 and 30%. And if they think this is low, well, actually it can get even worse. For poorly designed games, the retention can be, as low as just a few percent. And that's a real problem because, as we know, the competition is very tough and also getting new players is expensive. So for us game designers, it has become a key design objective to make sure that the game will be attractive enough to retain players in the very first sessions. And that's what I'm going to talk to you today. And in particular, I'm just going to outline what I believe are the best practices to just do that. I will also briefly introduce myself. So my name is Pascal Luban. I'm a creative director and game designer. I'm freelance. I've also founded the Game Design Studio, which is a company which I use to wrap my business. But basically, just see me, I work as a freelance. So I've been in the business for 21 years now. Of course, at first I worked a lot on home consoles. Those are some of the titles I've been working on. And now, of course, like many of you, I'm working on mobile and Facebook titles. Again, here are some of the games on which I've been working on. Anyway, so before we go on with best practices, I want to talk a bit about players' psychology. It's very important for us game designers to understand players. And as I say, as game designers, we have to put ourselves into the shoes of the players. We have to think as the player. And this is why I'm just going now to briefly put myself into the shoes of somebody who is about to discover a freemium title. So what is this person thinking? Well, first of all, this person is looking for a new experience. That's very important to understand. Why do people decide to download the game and try it? Of course, maybe they saw some ads and some friends told them, well, you should try this game. But the real reason is that something in your title, in your game, attracted them. They're looking for something. They're looking for the thrill of combat. They're looking for the challenge of a puzzle. They're looking for the mystery of a storyline, whatever, Something got them attracted to your title. Then, of course, the player is taking time out of something else. We are all running after time. Time is a precious resource. So the player has little of it. That means he's impatient. Then he knows he's got choices. There are so many games out there. He knows very well that if the game he's currently playing does not fit what he's looking for, he's got alternative. And finally, the last point, he does not feel involved in the game because he has not invested in it. Now that's probably the most important thing to understand. When you buy a game with real money, somehow you feel committed to this game. Even if this game looks too hard or not very interesting, you are still going to play a little bit more just to find out if the game is really worth playing. Maybe you say, well, maybe the game is not interesting now, but later on it will become interesting. So you play longer. But when you have not made this investment, when you have not spent money, you don't have this emotional investment in the game, and that's a key thing to keep in mind. Having said that, now I'm just going to introduce those best practices. So the best practice number one, get the player into the game as fast as possible. And I will take example to illustrate my point. So the first example I will take is Criminal Case. It's a hidden object games developed and published by Pretty Simple. And the game initially was launched on Facebook, and actually it even became one of the best games. At one time, it was the second best played game on Facebook. So how does it look like? I'm just going to show you very briefly the beginning. First screen, it's a splash screen, okay? And second screen, you go immediately into the story. You go immediately into the game, no tutorial, nothing, to introduce. Right away, you are into, the heat of the action. You are into, the murder investigation. So you see, they got the player immediately into what he was looking for. And why is this rule so important? Just because you want to deliver to the player as soon as possible the promise you made to him. Again, remember what I said earlier. People are attracted because they're looking for a certain experience. The later you deliver that, the more chances you have to lose your player. And also, you want the gameplay to kick in as soon as possible. Remember, people play games for the gameplay, not for the storyline or the graphics. Gameplay is at the heart of it. And actually, gameplay is what will get people hooked to your game. So you want them to get into the gameplay as soon as possible. Best practice number two, add simple storytelling. Again, I will take an example. I will use Boom Beach from Supercell. And I think it's especially well done. I will point out the differences that makes it well done. So when you start the game, of course, it's a very simple thing. You've seen that many often. You have an island and you are told that the island is going to be invaded. You have to defend it. So you go into defending it. You discover your enemy. It's this guy, Luban Hammerman, looks quite evil. So you can put a face on your opponent, After that, once you have repelled the attack, you are told that you have to attack another island. You build a fleet, select your target, do the attack, and then after the attack, what happened? You just discover that, actually you've done something good. You have freed the people who were enslaved by the bad guy, and they are thankful to you. So, of course, this is just to get you into the game. But you see, what makes this little storyline very interesting is they are using characters we can relate to. And why is this best practice so effective? It's simply because it gives purpose to the player. Of course, for those of you who play the game, we don't play the game for a storyline. We play the game because it's exciting, there's multiplayer combat and so on. But the storyline, it's important because until full gameplay kicks in, the storyline, the purpose it gives you is what is going to get you playing at least for 5, 10 minutes, half an hour and so on. Best practice number 3. Get the player to play, not to click his way through the tutorial. We all know this situation. And I'm going again to show you an example of probably one of the best examples I've known of outstanding game start without asking you, to just go through a tutorial. So I will take the example of Real Racing 3, which is, as the name says, it's a racing game published by Electronic Arts. And I'm just going to show you the beginning. When you launch the game, this is what you see. Actually, it's moving. This is just a still picture, but the game, you actually see the race. Of course, it's high quality, it's beautiful, you see exciting cars, and soon enough, you're into the cockpit. So again, this is just moving. You don't play yet, but you are in the middle, of a pack of cars going at high speed. The game tells you how it works, so it's very simple in that case. You've got it tells you how to steer, and then there's another screen that tells you how to change camera, and as soon as you've validated that, immediately you get into the race. So you've got what is called a rolling start, so all the cars are moving at the same speed, and when the green goes light, that's it, the real race is unleashed. And to make it even more exciting, you discover you are playing against other players. So of course, those are just ghosts of other players' performance, but nevertheless, it makes the race much more exciting and you're actually driving the vehicle. So, of course, this is a simple examples, Other games have more complex interaction, but the principle is the same. The idea is that you want people to play the game as soon as possible, and you don't want them, to spend too much time just reading tutorials and clicking on buttons. So, why is it so important? Because good gameplay, again, this is what is getting people to play games. And good gameplay is not about doing meaningful actions, like clicking on a button. It is about taking decisions, maybe taking risk, just actually interacting in a smart way. I really insist on the word decision. This is what makes a gameplay very effective. When the player is put in a situation where he has to make choices, and then he sees the results, then this is highly gratifying for him. And that's the difference between a good gameplay and a not so good gameplay, where basically you do things and nothing special, and no matter what you do, it works, you win, and so on. There's no effect. Best practice number 4, make your game stand out. What I mean by that is that from the very start, you have to show what is unique about your game. I'll take an example again from a Swedish company called Mediocre, and the example is the smash hit. Now here it's even, I showed an example earlier on of gameplay screens where the excitement was. Here the excitement begins from the splash screen. I mean, this is what it is. So just by looking at that, immediately look at the graphic quality and look at the atmosphere. It's not just beautiful, it's just eerie, it's magical, it's mysterious. You just want to go there. And of course, as soon as you launch the game, within 1 second, you immediately see the gameplay, which is quite original. Here the idea is just to throw, with a sweep of your finger, you just throw a silver ball and destroy glass items. Gameplay is fun, and it's kind of unique, so immediately you can show people, look at my game, it looks and feels different from anything else. And again, remember what I said earlier when I talked about player psychology, people are looking for specific experiences, and it's possible they are very curious about new ones. It can be anything else, anything. It can be a new theme, new gameplays, new graphic and sound, compelling story, whatever it is. If you offer something which appears differently to players, they will try, because people are attracted by novelties. Best practice number 5. Show the player the scope of the game. What I mean by that is that you want to show the player how big the game is. I'll take 2 examples. The first one is from a mobile game. It's Boom Beach again. So in Boom Beach, if you have access to the construction menu of the game, you can see everything you can build in the game. All the defenses, all the troops, and so on. So of course, at the beginning, almost everything is locked. But you can see that if you reach such level, you can buy the cool gun, and later on you can unlock troops, tanks, and so on. So of course you understand it is going to take you time to reach that, but at least it shows you that if you play the game, if you play long enough, you'll be able to unlock all those stuff. It's like walking into a toy store, seeing all the toys around you. Of course, you don't have enough pocket money to buy them all, hopefully. But that's, one day I'll be able to buy that, and that. We've all been through that. It's exactly the same mechanism. I'll take another example from a totally different game. It's World of Tanks. World of Tanks, when you start, sorry, my screenshots are a bit dark. When you start, you get 1 tank from every nation involved in the game. So there are nearly 8 nations, French, Germans, Americans, Chinese, Japanese, and so on. You get 1 free tank, okay? Of course, it's very small, but you soon discover that you can unlock other tanks. And when you go into the details, this is very dark, I'm very sorry, but you can see that for every nation, you've got dozens and dozens of exciting tanks you can to unlock. And this is a very strong motivation, because obviously the tanks which are most appealing, like the fancy Tiger tank and so on, they are much further along the line. But it shows you that if you play the game, you'll be able, to really enjoy yourself. So, again, I'll go a bit fast. So this is an important rule, because it shows the player that if he plays the game long enough, he'll be able to get a lot of things out of it. Best practice number 6, Don't frustrate the player before he has accomplished anything in the game. Now, of course, in freemium games, we often generate revenues by creating frustration for the player. Now, the thing is that you have to resist the temptation of creating too much frustration too early. The rule is to be generous. You know, the idea is that you have to give a lot to the player early on, and later on you make him pay for extra things. So at least that's the way it works in the West. Best practice number 7, don't ask the player to register before he has actually tried the game. Again, at least in the West, most players hate it. First, they want to try the game, and if they like it, yes, they will, enter their email address or give you access to their Facebook account and so on. Of course, there are exceptions, like games that require the player to download a client. I'm almost done. Best practice number 8, don't put forward the shop. That's going to send to the players the wrong message. Either that this is a game where they will need to spend money, people don't say, well, no, I want to play a free game, so I'm going to spend money, I will not play it. Or it could also say that you are just too rapacious, you just want too much revenue. So, just to summarize, here are all the best practices I strongly recommend, and just going through them very quickly. My conclusion here to you is that, of course, all those rules don't necessarily apply to all games. It's up to you designers to make the right selection, but basically those are proven solutions that do work. Thank you very much.